Hello there. How are you tonight? Before we begin, dim the lights. Get comfortable, and if you enjoy calm, slightly unsettling history like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from tonight. It's always fascinating to see. Now, imagine this: you're living in ancient Rome, the sun has begun to set, the streets are cooling, and the noise of the day is fading. But for the Romans, the night was not a time for rest, it was a time for entertainment, and what they called fun might feel deeply disturbing to us today. Crowds would gather, not for music, not for stories, but for spectacles that blurred the line between excitement and cruelty. Moments that made people cheer while others suffered, and yet, to them, this was normal. Tonight, we slowly step into that world, exploring the strange, unsettling, and often forgotten ways ancient Romans entertained themselves. So relax, let your breathing slow, and let's quietly wander into the darker side of Roman life. The city of Rome was alive with sound, the clatter of sandals on stone streets, the murmur of merchants closing their stalls, the faint smell of bread cooling in ovens. But beneath this ordinary rhythm, there was always anticipation, because Rome was not just a city of politics and empire, it was a city of spectacle. Entertainment was woven into daily life. It was not a luxury, it was a necessity. For the poor, it was escape. For the wealthy, it was power, and for the rulers, it was control. Bread and circuses, they called it. Feed the people, distract them, and they will not rise against you. Imagine walking through the Forum at dusk. The marble columns glow faintly in the fading light. You hear whispers of excitement, rumors of tomorrow's games, a gladiator match, perhaps, or a hunt with beasts brought from distant lands. The air is heavy with expectation. The Romans lived for these moments, but entertainment was not confined to the grand arenas. It seeped into every corner of life. Banquets where excess was celebrated, parties where laughter carried into the night, bathhouses where gossip flowed as freely as the water. Even the streets themselves became stages, with performers, gamblers, and storytellers, turning ordinary evenings into something more. Yet beneath the laughter, beneath the applause, there was always something darker, because Roman fun often came at a cost: the cost of dignity, the cost of life, the cost of humanity itself. Picture the Colosseum rising in the distance, its arches loom like shadows against the twilight sky. Inside, thousands of voices would soon echo, cheering, jeering, gasping. The games were not just entertainment, they were ritual, they were theater. They were a mirror of Rome itself, grand, powerful, and merciless. But tonight, in this quiet retelling, we will not rush into the roar of the crowd. We will move slowly, step by step, through the layers of Roman life. We will see how spectacle shaped society, how cruelty became ordinary, and how the pursuit of pleasure revealed something unsettling about human nature. So let your mind drift, as if you are walking those ancient streets. The lamps flicker with oil flames, the shadows stretch across the walls. You hear distant voices, a song, perhaps, or the faint clatter of dice on a wooden table. Rome is alive, but it is not peaceful, it is restless, it is hungry for entertainment. And as the night deepens, you begin to realize that what the Romans called fun was not always joyous. It was often disturbing, it was often cruel, and yet, it was the heartbeat of their world. This is where our journey begins, not in battlefields, not in politics, but in the quiet, unsettling truth of how people found pleasure, in ways that now feel haunting. So breathe deeply, let the images of ancient Rome settle in your mind, and prepare to wander further, because in the chapters ahead, we will step into the arena, we will witness the banquets, we will hear the laughter and the cries, and we will uncover the darker side of Roman fun. For now, rest in this moment. The city is waiting, the torches burn low, and the story is only just beginning. The city of Rome did not simply live. It performed. Every street, Every square, every arena was a stage, and the Romans, they adored spectacle, not quiet diversions. Not gentle pastimes, but grand displays that consumed the senses. Imagine yourself standing in a crowd. The air is heavy with anticipation, the sound of sandals shuffling across stone, the murmur of voices rising like a tide. You feel the press of bodies around you, all waiting for something extraordinary. This was Rome's heartbeat, the promise of spectacle. For the Romans, entertainment was not a distraction, it was identity. It was proof of their greatness. The empire stretched across continents, and with it came treasures, beasts, and people, to feed the hunger of Roman audiences. Spectacle was a way to remind the citizens that they belonged to something vast, something powerful, something eternal. The rulers understood this well. A grand show was more than amusement, it was politics, it was persuasion, it was a way to keep the people loyal. Bread and circuses, food for the stomach, and spectacle for the soul. Together, they kept the city calm. Together, they kept rebellion at bay. Picture the great amphitheaters. Their stone arches rise into the sky, casting long shadows across the city. Inside, thousands gather. The crowd is restless, their voices echoing like waves against the walls. They are not here for quiet stories. They are here for something larger, something unforgettable. The Romans loved scale. The bigger the show, the greater the thrill. Exotic animals brought from distant lands, gladiators trained to fight with precision, actors performing tragedies that mirrored life itself. Every spectacle was designed to overwhelm, to remind the audience that Rome was unmatched, that Rome was eternal. But there was something unsettling in this love, because the spectacles were not gentle, they were not kind, they were often cruel, and yet, cruelty was part of the allure. The crowd cheered not only for victory, but for suffering. They found beauty in the struggle, and entertainment in the pain. This was not hidden, it was celebrated. The Romans believed that spectacle revealed truth, that in the arena, in the theater, in the banquet hall, human nature was laid bare. Strength, weakness, courage, fear, all exposed before the eyes of thousands, and the crowd, they loved it. Imagine the flicker of torchlight as night falls over the city. The amphitheater glows like a beacon. Inside, the crowd roars. Outside, the streets are alive with whispers. Children speak of gladiators as heroes. Merchants gossip about the next great hunt. Even the poorest citizens dream of the spectacle to come. It was not just entertainment, it was ritual, it was tradition, it was Rome itself, reflected in the faces of its people. And yet, as you stand in that crowd, you feel something deeper, a tension beneath the excitement. Because the love of spectacle was not only about joy, it was about control, it was about distraction, it was about keeping the people's eyes fixed on the stage, instead of the struggles of daily life. The rulers knew this, the emperors mastered it. And the people accepted it, because in Rome, to live was to watch, to belong was to cheer, and to be Roman was to love spectacle. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that crowd settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the voices rise, the anticipation grows. This is the Roman love for spectacle, a love that shaped their world, and revealed the darker side of human desire. And as we move forward, we will step closer to the heart of it all. The arena, the place where spectacle reached its most disturbing form. The Colosseum awaits, and the story is only beginning. Rome was a city of endless noise, but beneath the clamor of politics and trade, there was always the quiet pool of escape. For the ordinary citizen, life was not easy, work was long, food was scarce, and the weight of empire pressed heavily on their shoulders. And so, entertainment became more than pleasure, it became survival. Imagine a laborer returning home after a day of toil. His hands are rough, his body weary. The streets are crowded, but his mind drifts toward the promise of distraction. Perhaps dice games in a tavern, perhaps a storyteller in the marketplace, perhaps the distant roar of a crowd, echoing from the amphitheater. These moments were not luxuries. They were lifelines. The poor found solace in the simplest diversions, street performers juggling in the fading light, musicians plucking strings beneath archways, gamblers tossing dice on worn wooden tables. Each act, Each sound was a reminder that life could hold joy, even in hardship. The city itself became a theater, its alleys and squares alive with small escapes. For the wealthy, escape was different, banquets filled with endless courses. Wine flowing until the night blurred into dawn, actors hired to perform tragedies and comedies for private audiences. Their entertainment was indulgence, a way to flaunt power and wealth, but whether rich or poor, the purpose was the same. To forget, if only for a moment, the burdens of reality. Entertainment was woven into the rhythm of daily life, bathhouses where gossip mingled with steam, taverns where laughter drowned out despair, theaters where stories unfolded in candlelight. Every corner of Rome offered escape, and the people embraced it, because in a city so vast, so restless, so demanding, they needed release. But there was something unsettling in this dependence, because escape often blurred into excess. The laughter grew louder, the feasts more indulgent, the games more cruel. The line between joy and obsession was thin and often crossed. Picture the streets at night. Torches flicker against stone walls, children chase shadows, their laughter echoing through the alleys. Merchants gather in taverns, their voices rising with drink, and somewhere, in the distance, the amphitheater hums with anticipation. Rome does not sleep, it escapes. This daily rhythm shaped the city, it kept the people distracted, it kept them content, and it revealed something timeless, that humans, when faced with hardship, seek not only survival, but diversion. The Romans understood this deeply, they built their world around it. So breathe slowly, and imagine yourself drifting through those streets. The lamps glow softly, the voices fade into the night. Everywhere, people search for escape, and in that search, they reveal the heart of Rome. This was entertainment as a daily escape, a quiet, constant rhythm that carried the city forward. But soon, the escape would grow darker. Soon, the crowd would demand more, and the arena would answer. Rome was not only a city of citizens, it was a city of rulers, senators, and emperors who understood the power of entertainment. For them, spectacle was not simply amusement, it was a weapon, a way to display wealth, to command loyalty, to remind the people who held control. Imagine the forum at dawn. Marble gleams faintly in the rising light. Senators in flowing togas walk with measured steps, their voices low, their eyes sharp. They speak not of philosophy, but of games, because in Rome, public shows were politics. To fund a grand spectacle was to win the hearts of thousands. To deny it was to risk unrest. The wealthy poured fortunes into entertainment, gladiator schools funded by noble families, exotic beasts imported from distant lands, lavish banquets offered to the masses. Each display was a declaration: I am powerful. I am generous. I am Roman. The people cheered, but beneath the applause was a quiet truth. Spectacle was control. Picture the Colosseum filled with citizens. The emperor himself appears, bathed in torchlight, his presence commanding silence. Then, with a single gesture, the games begin. The crowd erupts. The emperor smiles, because in that moment, he is not only ruler, he is master of the spectacle. Public shows were carefully designed. They were free to attend, ensuring even the poorest citizens could feel part of Rome's grandeur. Bread was distributed, wine flowed, and the people forgot their hunger, forgot their struggles, forgot their doubts. All eyes turned to the arena, all voices joined in the roar. But there was something unsettling in this generosity, because it was not kindness, it was calculation. The wealthy gave entertainment, not to uplift, but to distract, not to heal, but to control, and the people accepted it, because the shows were magnificent, because the escape was irresistible. Imagine the senators seated in marble rows, their faces lit by torchlight. They watch the crowd as much as the games. They measure loyalty in cheers, obedience in applause. Every cry of excitement is proof that Rome is united. Every gasp of horror is proof that Rome is strong. The spectacle is not only for the people, it is for the rulers. It is their mirror, and yet, beneath the grandeur, there is unease, because the wealth that fuels the shows is built on conquest, on slavery, on suffering. The power that commands the arena is the same power that silences dissent. The spectacle dazzles, but it also blinds, so breathe slowly, and let the image of that Colosseum settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the crowd roars, the emperor smiles. This is wealth, power, and public shows, a world where entertainment was not only pleasure, but politics, not only escape, but control. And as we move forward, we will step into the arena itself, the heart of Roman entertainment, the place where spectacle became most disturbing. The Colosseum awaits, and the story deepens. The Colosseum, a monument that still stands today, its arches weathered, its stones scarred, yet its presence undeniable. In ancient Rome, it was not simply a building, it was the heart of entertainment, the beating center of spectacle, the place where Rome revealed its soul. Imagine approaching it at dawn. The sky is pale, the air cool against your skin, the massive structure rises before you, its shadow stretching across the city. Crowds gather at its gates, their voices hushed. With anticipation, the Colosseum was more than stone, it was promise, promise of excitement, promise of escape, promise of something unforgettable. Inside, the scale overwhelms you, rows upon rows of seats. Stretching high into the sky, the arena floor lies below, silent for now, but soon to be alive with spectacle. The walls echo faintly, as if holding memories of countless cries. This was not a place of peace, it was a place of performance, and every Roman knew it. The Colosseum was built for the people. Free entry ensured that even the poorest citizen could feel part of Rome's grandeur. Bread was distributed, wine poured, and the crowd settled into their seats. They came not only for entertainment, but for belonging. To sit in the Colosseum was to be Roman, to cheer in its walls was to share in the empire's heartbeat. But beneath the generosity, there was calculation. The emperors knew the power of spectacle. They knew that a satisfied crowd was a loyal crowd, and so, the Colosseum became a stage for politics as much as pleasure. Every game, every hunt, every performance was a reminder of Rome's strength and of the emperor's control. Picture the torches flickering as night falls, the arena glows with firelight, the crowd hums with anticipation, children cling to their parents, merchants whisper of wages, soldiers stand proudly in uniform. The Colosseum was not only a building, it was a gathering place, a place where all of Rome came together to watch, and yet, there was something haunting in its grandeur, because the entertainment it offered was not gentle, it was not kind. It was often cruel. The Colosseum was a theater of violence, a place where suffering became spectacle, where life and death were woven into performance. Still, the people loved it. They loved the scale, the drama, the intensity. They loved the way the Colosseum made them forget their struggles. They loved the way it reminded them that they belonged to something vast, and so, they returned again and again, filling its seats, roaring with excitement, hungry for more. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that great arena settle in your mind. The arches rise into the sky, the torches flicker, the crowd waits. This is the Colosseum, the heart of Roman entertainment. The place where spectacle became ritual, and cruelty became ordinary, and as we move forward, we will step closer to its performances, to the gladiators who fought, to the beasts who were hunted, to the executions that shocked the crowd. The Colosseum awaits, and the story grows darker. The Colosseum was alive with anticipation, but at its center stood the gladiators, figures both admired and pitied, both celebrated and condemned. They were the heartbeat of the arena, and yet, their lives were not their own. Imagine the gates opening. From the shadows, a gladiator steps forward. The crowd erupts in cheers, his name echoing across the stone walls. To the people, he is a hero, a symbol of courage, strength, and skill. But behind the armor, behind the spectacle, is a man bound by fate. Gladiators came from many paths. Some were slaves, captured in war, others were criminals, condemned to fight, and some chose the life willingly, seeking fame, fortune, or redemption. But once inside the arena, their choices faded. They became performers, they became property, their lives belonged to Rome. The crowd adored them, Children whispered their names, merchants sold trinkets in their likeness, poets wrote verses of their victories. They were celebrated as champions, yet treated as expendable, because for every cheer, there was the expectation of blood, for every victory, there was the shadow of death. Picture the gladiator preparing for battle. His armor gleams faintly in torchlight, his sword feels heavy in his hand, he breathes slowly, knowing that the crowd demands a show. He is not only fighting for survival, he is fighting for spectacle. Every movement, every strike, is part of the performance, and the audience watches with hungry eyes. Picture the gladiator preparing for battle. His armor gleams faintly in torchlight, his sword feels heavy in his hand, he breathes slowly, knowing that the crowd demands a show. He is not only fighting for survival, he is fighting for spectacle. Every movement, every strike, is part of the performance, and the audience watches with hungry eyes. Some gladiators rose to fame. They won battles, earned wealth, and even gained freedom. Their names lived on in stories, their victories etched into memory, but for most, the arena was a prison, a place where their lives were measured in moments of violence, where their worth was defined by the crowd's applause, and yet the people loved them. They loved the courage, the skill, the drama of the fight. They loved the way gladiators embodied Rome's ideals of strength and endurance. But beneath the admiration was something darker, because the gladiators were not free. They were victims of a system that turned suffering into entertainment. Imagine the silence after a battle. The crowd waits, their voices hushed, the emperor raises his hand. A gesture decides the gladiator's fate, life or death. The arena holds its breath, and in that moment, the gladiator is no longer a hero, he is a pawn. His destiny rests not in his skill, but in the whim of power. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that gladiator settle in your mind. The armor gleams, the crowd roars, the emperor watches. This is the gladiator's world, a world of admiration and cruelty, a world where heroes were victims, and victims became heroes. And as we move forward, we will step deeper into the arena, beyond the gladiators, to the hunts, the beasts, and the executions that defined Roman entertainment. The story grows darker still, and the Colosseum waits. The Colosseum was not only a stage for men, it was a stage for creatures. Beasts brought from distant lands paraded before the crowd as living trophies. For the Romans, the hunt was spectacle, and the animals were both marvel and victim. Imagine the gates opening. From the shadows, a lion steps forward, its mane glows faintly in torchlight, its roar echoing across the stone walls. The crowd gasps, children cling to their parents. Merchants whisper wagers. This was not a simple fight, it was a display of Rome's reach, the reminder that the empire stretched far beyond the city. Exotic beasts were brought from Africa, from Asia, from lands so distant they seemed like myth. Elephants, tigers, leopards, bears, each one paraded into the arena as proof of Rome's power. The people marveled at their size, their strength, their strangeness, but the marvel quickly turned to violence, because the hunt was not about wonder, it was about blood. Picture the hunters stepping forward, armed with spears, their faces calm, their movements deliberate. They circle the beast, waiting for the perfect strike. The crowd roars with anticipation. Every moment is theater, every gesture is performance. The animal fights for survival, but the outcome is certain. The hunt always ends in death. The Romans adored these spectacles. They saw them as proof of their empire's greatness. If Rome could capture the beasts of the world, then surely Rome could conquer anything. The hunts were not only entertainment, they were propaganda, they were lessons in power, and the people learned them well. But beneath the excitement, there was unease, because the animals were not enemies, they were victims, dragged from their homes, forced into cages, paraded before crowds who cheered their suffering. The hunt revealed something darker, that cruelty could be celebrated, that violence could be joy. Imagine the silence after the kill. The beast lies motionless, its body lit by torchlight. The crowd erupts in cheers, their voices echoing through the arches. The hunters raise their weapons in triumph. The emperor nods in approval, and yet, beneath the applause, there is a shadow, because the spectacle is not only about victory, it is about domination, it is about control. The Colosseum became a menagerie of death. Day after day, beasts were slaughtered for amusement, their blood stained the sand, their cries echoed in memory, and the people, they returned again and again, hungry for more, because the hunts were not only disturbing, they were irresistible. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that lion settle in your mind. Its roar fades, its body lies still, the crowd cheers, the torches flicker. This is the animal hunt. This is the spectacle of exotic beasts, a world where wonder became cruelty, and cruelty became entertainment. And as we move forward, we will step deeper into the darkness, beyond the hunts, to the executions. The punishments, the performances, that revealed the most disturbing side of Roman fun. The story grows heavier, and the Colosseum waits. The Colosseum was not only a place of games, not only a stage for gladiators and beasts, it was also a theater of death, because in Rome, execution itself became entertainment. Imagine the crowd gathering, the torches flicker, casting long shadows across the stone arches. The air is heavy with anticipation. They are not here for a contest, they are here for punishment, for justice, as Rome defined it, and for the spectacle that followed. Criminals, prisoners of war, and those condemned by the state, were brought into the arena. Their fate was not hidden, it was displayed, because in Rome, death was not private, it was public, it was ritual, it was performance. Picture the condemned standing in the sand. The crowd watches in silence, some whisper, others jeer, but all eyes are fixed on the figure before them. The execution is not only about punishment, it is about control, it is about reminding the people that Rome's power was absolute. Executions took many forms, some were swift, a blade, a strike, a fall, others were elaborate, designed as theater, woven into the day's spectacle. Prisoners might be forced to reenact myths, playing the role of doomed characters, whose deaths were scripted long before. The crowd cheered, not only for justice, but for drama. Imagine the condemned dressed as a figure from legend. Perhaps Orpheus, perhaps Icarus. The story unfolds, but the ending is always the same. Death. The myth becomes reality, and the crowd applauds, because for the Romans, execution was not only punishment, it was art, it was theater. The cruelty was deliberate, because the rulers knew that fear was a powerful tool. To watch another suffer was to be reminded of Rome's strength. To see punishment displayed was to understand the cost of defiance. The executions were not only entertainment, they were warnings, and the people understood them well. Picture the silence after the final blow. The condemned lies motionless, the sand stained beneath him. The crowd erupts in cheers, their voices echoing through the arches. The emperor nods, the senators watch, and the spectacle continues, because in Rome, death was not the end, it was part of the show. And yet, beneath the applause, there is unease. Because the executions reveal something darker, that cruelty can be celebrated, that suffering can be joy, that human life can be reduced to performance. The Colosseum was not only a monument of stone, it was a monument of violence, and the people embraced it. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that arena settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the crowd roars, the condemned falls. This is public execution as entertainment, a world where punishment became theater, and theater became cruelty. And as we move forward, we will step deeper still, beyond the executions, to the banquets, the feasts, the indulgences, that revealed another side of Roman fun. The story continues. And Rome waits. The Colosseum was never silent. Even before the games began, its walls trembled with anticipation, because the true power of the arena was not only in the gladiators, not only in the beasts, not only in the executions, it was in the crowd, the roar of thousands, the voice of Rome itself. Imagine the seats filling at dawn. Citizens from every corner of the city stream through the arches. The poor sit high above, their faces lit faintly by torchlight. The wealthy recline closer to the arena, their garments gleaming in muted gold. Children cling to their parents, merchants whisper wages, soldiers stand proudly in uniform. The Colosseum was not divided by silence. It was united by sound. The roar of the crowd was overwhelming. It rose like a tide, crashing against the stone walls, echoing into the sky. Every cheer, every gasp, every cry was part of the performance, because the games were not only for the fighters, they were for the audience. The crowd was not passive, it was active, it demanded spectacle, it shaped the outcome. Picture the moment a gladiator strikes, the crowd erupts, their voices shaking the arena. The sound is not gentle, it is thunderous, it is primal, it is the collective heartbeat of Rome. The gladiator feels it, the emperor hears it, the roar becomes part of the fight, part of the spectacle, part of the story. The crowd held power, because in Rome, the people's voice mattered, not in politics, not in law, but in the arena. A cheer could grant mercy, a cry could demand death. The emperor listened, his hand guided by the roar. The crowd was not only audience, it was judge, it was executioner, it was Rome itself. And yet, there was something unsettling in this power, because the roar was not always noble, it was not always merciful, often, it was cruel. The people cheered for suffering, they demanded blood, they found joy in pain. The roar revealed something darker, that cruelty could be collective, that violence could be shared, that the crowd itself was part of the spectacle. Imagine the silence before a decision. The gladiator stands, his fate uncertain. The emperor raises his hand, waiting for the crowd's voice. The silence is heavy, the air thick with tension. Then, the roar erupts, mercy or death, life or execution, decided not by rulers alone, but by thousands of voices. Echoing through the arches, the roar was intoxicating. It swept through the arena, binding strangers together, turning individuals into a single force. The poor forgot their hunger, the wealthy forgot their politics, the soldiers forgot their battles. All became part of the roar, all became part of Rome. But beneath the unity, there was danger, because the roar could be manipulated. The rulers knew this. They fed the crowd with bread, with wine, with spectacle. They gave the people what they craved, and in return, they gained loyalty. The roar was not only sound, it was control, it was power. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that crowd settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the voices rise, the roar shakes the arena. This is the crowd of Rome. This is the sound of spectacle, a voice that was both joy and cruelty, both unity and manipulation. The roar of the crowd, the roar of Rome. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the arena, to the daily rhythms of citizens, to the balance between survival and spectacle, to the quieter truths hidden beneath the noise. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of contrasts. By day, the Colosseum roared with violence. By night, the halls of the wealthy echoed with laughter, because when the games ended, when the hunts and executions were complete, the nobles turned to another kind of spectacle, the banquet, the feast, a theater of indulgence. Imagine a grand villa lit by torchlight, marble floors gleam beneath woven rugs. Couches line the walls, where nobles recline in flowing garments. Servants move quietly, carrying trays heavy with food and wine. The air is thick with music, with conversation, with the scent of roasted meats. This was not a simple meal, it was performance, it was wealth displayed in abundance. The banquets were endless, courses upon courses, each more extravagant than the last. Exotic fruits from distant lands, rare spices carried across seas, animals prepared in ways designed to astonish. Wine flowed until the night blurred, and conversation turned to spectacle, because in Rome, to eat was not only to live, it was to prove status, it was to show power. Picture the nobles reclining on couches, their voices rising in laughter. Musicians pluck strings softly in the background, actors perform short plays, their gestures exaggerated for amusement. Every detail is designed to entertain, every moment is crafted to impress. The feast is not only indulgence. It is theater, it is Rome's grandeur reflected in food and drink, but beneath the indulgence, there was excess, because the banquets were not gentle, they were overwhelming. The wealthy ate until they could eat no more. then demanded more still. They drank until the night dissolved, then called for another cup. The feasts revealed not only abundance, but obsession. Imagine the servants moving quietly, refilling cups, carrying trays, clearing plates, their faces calm, their movements precise. They are part of the performance, but invisible to the guests, because the banquet is not about them. It is about the nobles. It is about power. It is about excess. The poor watched from outside, hearing the laughter, smelling the food, but never tasting it. For them, the banquet was a reminder of the distance between classes, of the wealth that divided Rome, of the indulgence that defined the elite. The feasts were not only entertainment, they were symbols of privilege, symbols of control, and yet, the nobles believed the banquets were proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance was a sign of empire, that indulgence was a mark of civilization. The feasts were not only meals, they were declarations of wealth, of power, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that banquet settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the laughter rises, the wine flows. This is the feast of excess, a world where indulgence became theater, and theater became obsession. And as we move forward, we will step deeper into Rome's contradictions, beyond the banquets, to the daily lives of citizens, to the rhythms of work and play, to the balance between survival and spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but its indulgence did not end with feasts. When the banquets grew heavy, when the tables overflowed with food, another ritual began: the drinking, the late nights, a culture of wine and revelry that stretched until dawn. Imagine a villa after midnight. The torches burn low, casting long shadows across marble walls. The couches are crowded with nobles, their voices rising in laughter, their cups filled again and again. Wine flows freely, its scent thick in the air. The night is not quiet, it is alive with conversation, with music, with indulgence. Drinking was not only pleasure, it was performance. The wealthy prided themselves on their ability to endure the night, to drink without faltering, to laugh without pause. The cups were never empty. The servants moved silently, refilling, replacing, ensuring the flow never ceased. Because in Rome, wine was not only drink, it was status, it was power. Picture the nobles reclining, their faces flushed with wine. Musicians pluck strings softly, actors perform short scenes, their gestures exaggerated for amusement. The night stretches endlessly, each hour marked not by silence, but by another cup. The drinking is not gentle, it is overwhelming, it is excess made ritual. The culture of drinking revealed Rome's contradictions, because while the nobles indulged, the poor watched from outside. They smelled the wine, heard the laughter, but never tasted it. For them, the late nights were reminders of distance, of privilege, of the wealth that divided the city. The drinking was not only indulgence, it was a symbol of Rome's hierarchy. And yet, the nobles believed the drinking was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance was a sign of empire, that indulgence was a mark of civilization. The late nights were not only revelry, they were declarations of wealth, of power, of Rome itself. Imagine the servants moving quietly, their faces calm, their movements precise. They refill cups, clear plates, carry trays heavy with wine. They are part of the ritual, but invisible to the guests. Because the drinking is not about them, it is about the nobles, it is about excess, it is about Rome's indulgence. The night stretched endlessly, the nobles drank until dawn, their voices rising in song, their laughter echoing through the halls. Some collapsed in exhaustion, others demanded more. The drinking was not only indulgence, it was obsession, it was Rome's hunger for excess, made visible in wine. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that late night settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the cups overflow, the laughter rises. This is Rome's drinking culture, a world where wine became ritual, and ritual became obsession. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the banquets and drinking halls, to the daily rhythms of citizens, to the balance between survival and spectacle, to the quieter truths hidden beneath indulgence. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but its indulgence was not confined to the arena, nor to the banquet hall, because beyond the feasts, beyond the drinking, there were the parties, gatherings that were more than celebration. They were rituals of power, symbols of status, performances of Rome itself. Imagine a courtyard lit by torchlight, marble columns rise into the night, their shadows stretching across tiled floors, guests arrive in flowing garments, their voices rising in laughter, their faces glowing in the flicker of flame. Musicians play softly, actors perform short scenes, and servants move quietly, carrying trays heavy with food and wine. This is not a simple gathering. It is theater. It is Rome's grandeur reflected in joy. The parties were endless. They stretched into the night, filled with music, with conversation, with indulgence. Every detail was deliberate. The decorations, the performances, the abundance of food and drink, because in Rome, a party was not only celebration, it was proof of wealth, it was proof of power. Picture the nobles reclining on couches, their voices rising in song. Poets recite verses, their words echoing. Through the courtyard, dancers move gracefully, their shadows flickering across marble walls. Every gesture is performance, every moment is spectacle. The party is not only indulgence, it is theater. It is Rome's identity displayed in abundance, but beneath the joy, there was excess, because the parties were not gentle, they were overwhelming. The wealthy drank until dawn, their laughter echoing through the halls. They ate until exhaustion, then demanded more. The gatherings revealed not only abundance, but obsession. Imagine the servants moving quietly, refilling cups, carrying trays, clearing plates, their faces calm, their movements precise. They are part of the performance, but invisible to the guests, because the party is not about them, it is about the nobles, it is about power, it is about Rome's indulgence. The poor watched from outside, hearing the music, smelling the food, but never tasting it. For them, the parties were reminders of the distance between classes, of the wealth that divided Rome, of the indulgence that defined the elite. The gatherings were not only entertainment, they were symbols, symbols of privilege, symbols of control, and yet, the nobles believed the parties were proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance was a sign of empire, that indulgence was a mark of civilization. The gatherings were not only joy, they were declarations, declarations of wealth, of power, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that party settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the music rises, the laughter echoes. This is the Roman party, a world where celebration became theater, and theater became obsession. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the parties, to the daily rhythms of citizens, to the balance between survival and spectacle, to the quieter truths hidden beneath indulgence. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of laughter, but its humor was not always gentle, because beyond the banquets, beyond the drinking, there were jokes, performances, and spectacles of comedy. And yet, when we look back, the humor of Rome feels unsettling, because what they laughed at was often cruelty, what they found amusing was often pain. Imagine a crowded courtyard, the torches flicker, casting shadows across marble walls. Actors step forward, their gestures exaggerated, their voices rising. In mockery, the crowd erupts in laughter, but the target of the joke is not always harmless. Sometimes it is a prisoner, sometimes a servant, sometimes a figure meant to be humiliated. The humor is sharp, it cuts, it wounds. Roman comedy often relied on cruelty, mocking the weak, ridiculing the condemned, turning suffering into entertainment. The people laughed, not because it was kind, but because it was spectacle. The humor was not only amusement, it was control, it was a reminder of power. It was Rome's cruelty, disguised as laughter. Picture the actors dressed in masks, their faces exaggerated, their movements theatrical. They stumble, they fall, they mock. The crowd roars with laughter, but beneath the humor, there is unease, because the jokes are not gentle, they are sharp, they are cruel. They reveal a society that found joy in humiliation. The humor extended into the arena, prisoners forced to reenact myths, their death staged as comedy. The crowd laughed, not only at the performance, but at the suffering. The cruelty was deliberate, because the rulers knew that laughter could be weaponized, that humor could reinforce power, that mockery could remind the people of Rome's strength. Imagine the silence after a cruel joke. The laughter fades, but the humiliation remains. The condemned lies broken, the servant stands shamed, the actor bows, the crowd moves on, but the cruelty lingers, because Roman humor was not only laughter, it was violence disguised as joy. And yet, the people embraced it. They believed the humor was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that laughter was a mark of civilization, that cruelty, when wrapped in comedy, was acceptable. The humor was not only entertainment, it was declaration of Rome's values, of Rome's power, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that laughter settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the actors stumble. The crowd roars. This is Roman humor, a world where comedy became cruelty, and cruelty became joy. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the laughter, to the daily rhythms of citizens, to the balance between survival and spectacle, to the quieter truths hidden beneath indulgence. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but it was also a city of routine, because beyond the arena, beyond the banquets, beyond the laughter, there were spaces of calm, spaces where citizens gathered, not for violence, not for indulgence, but for ritual. The bathhouse, a place of water, of conversation, of relaxation. Imagine a grand building of stone. Columns rise into the sky, arches frame the entrance, and inside, the air is warm with steam. Pools shimmer in torchlight, there. Surfaces rippling softly, citizens move quietly, shedding garments, stepping into the water. The bathhouse is not only cleansing, it is social, it is communal, it is Rome's daily rhythm made visible. The bathhouses were vast, hot rooms, cold rooms, pools of every size, spaces for exercise, spaces for rest, spaces for conversation, because in Rome, to bathe was not only to wash, it was to connect, it was to belong. The bathhouse was not private, it was shared, it was Rome itself, reflected in water and stone. Picture the citizens reclining by the pools, merchants discuss trade, soldiers share stories of battle, poets recite verses softly, their words echoing in steam. Filled halls, children splash in shallow water, their laughter rising gently. Every detail is calm, every moment is ritual. The bathhouse is not only cleansing, it is theater, it is Rome's identity displayed in routine. But beneath the calm, there was hierarchy, because the bathhouse was open, but not equal. The wealthy reclined in private chambers, their pools lined with marble. The poor gathered in crowded halls, their voices rising in chorus. The bathhouse revealed not only community, but division. Imagine the servants moving quietly, carrying oils, preparing towels, refilling basins. Their faces calm, their movements precise. They are part of the ritual, but invisible to the guests, because the bathhouse is not about them. It is about the citizens. It is about Rome's rhythm. It is about daily life. The bathhouses were more than cleansing. They were places of politics. Deals were struck in whispered voices. Alliances formed in quiet corners. Decisions made not in marble halls, but in steam-filled chambers. The bathhouse was not only relaxation, it was power. It was Rome's society reflected in water, and yet, the citizens believed the bathhouses were proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance of water was a sign of empire, that communal bathing was a mark of civilization. The bathhouses were not only routine, they were declarations of wealth, of power, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that bathhouse settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the steam rises, the voices echo. This is the Roman bathhouse, a world where water became ritual, and ritual became society. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the bathhouses, to the streets of Rome, to the rhythms of daily life, to the balance between survival and spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of indulgence, but its pleasures were not confined to feasts, nor to drinking, nor to the bathhouses, because beyond the rituals of daily life, there was another form of entertainment, the games of chance, the gambling, a world where fortune was tested, where risk became ritual, where Rome's hunger for excess was revealed in dice and wagers. Imagine a crowded tavern at dusk, the torches flicker, casting shadows across wooden tables. Citizens gather in groups, their voices rising in laughter, their hands clutching dice carved from bone. The air is thick with wine, with smoke, with anticipation, because in Rome, gambling was not only pastime, it was spectacle. It was risk made visible. The games were simple, dice thrown across tables, coins wagered on outcomes, bets placed on chance, but the stakes were not always small. Fortunes could be lost in a single throw, friendships strained, alliances broken, lives altered, because gambling was not only play, it was danger. It was Rome's obsession with risk. Picture the nobles wagering heavily, their faces calm, their voices steady. They bet not only coins, but jewels, land, and sometimes even slaves. The poor watched, their wagers smaller, their risks greater, because for them, a single loss could mean hunger. The games revealed not only chance, but inequality. The gambling extended beyond taverns, into the streets, into the arenas, into the very heart of Rome. Citizens wagered on gladiators, on chariot races, on outcomes of spectacle. The roar of the crowd was not only excitement, it was investment, it was risk, it was Rome's hunger for chance, made collective. Imagine the silence before a throw. The dice rest in a hand, the air thick with tension. The throw is made, the dice tumble, the outcome revealed. The crowd erupts in laughter, in groans, in cries of triumph, because gambling was not only chance, it was theater. It was Rome's identity reflected in risk, but beneath the laughter, there was danger, because gambling was not gentle, it was obsession. The wealthy lost fortunes, the poor lost survival. The games revealed not only joy, but ruin. They showed Rome's hunger for excess, its willingness to risk everything, its obsession with chance, and yet, the citizens believed the gambling was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that risk was a mark of civilization, that chance was a sign of abundance. The games were not only play, they were declarations, declarations of wealth, of power, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that tavern settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the dice tumble, the laughter rises. This is Roman gambling, a world where chance became ritual, and ritual became obsession. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the games of chance, to the streets of Rome, to the rhythms of daily life, to the balance between survival and spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of grandeur, but its entertainment was not confined to arenas, nor to banquets, nor to gambling halls, because beyond the walls of villas, beyond the roar of the Colosseum, there were the streets, alive with performers, alive with spectacle, alive with shows that turned daily life into theater. Imagine a crowded marketplace at dawn. The air is thick with voices, with the scent of bread and spices, with the shuffle of sandals across stone, and in the center, a performer steps forward. A juggler tosses balls into the air, their movements precise, their rhythm steady. The crowd gathers, their laughter rising softly, because in Rome, the street was not only commerce. It was stage, it was spectacle. The performers were many: jugglers, acrobats, musicians, storytellers. Each brought their craft to the streets, each turned daily life into entertainment. Children watched with wide eyes, merchants paused in their trade, citizens lingered in conversation, because the shows were not only amusement, they were community, they were Rome's rhythm made visible. Picture the acrobats twisting in the air, their bodies moving with grace. Musicians pluck strings, their melodies echoing across stone walls. Storytellers recite myths, their voices rising in cadence. Every gesture is performance, every moment is spectacle. The street is not only passage, it is theater. It is Rome's identity displayed in routine. But beneath the joy, there was survival, because the performers were not wealthy. They relied on coins tossed into baskets, on food offered by merchants, on the generosity of crowds. Their art was not only entertainment, it was livelihood, it was survival made visible. Imagine the poor gathering in the streets, their laughter rising with the shows. For them, the performances were escape. A moment of joy, a pause from hunger, a glimpse of beauty. The shows revealed not only spectacle, but hope. The public shows extended beyond the marketplace, into festivals, into processions, into celebrations that filled the city. Actors performed plays in open courtyards, musicians filled the air with song, dancers moved in rhythm with drums. The streets became stage, the city became theater, Rome itself became performance, and yet, the citizens believed the street shows were proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance of art was a sign of empire, that public performance was a mark of civilization. The shows were not only joy, they were declarations of community, of resilience, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that street settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the music rises, the laughter echoes. This is the Roman street, a world where performance became survival, and survival became spectacle. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the performers, to the rhythms of daily life, to the balance between survival and indulgence, to the quieter truths hidden beneath spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but its theater was not always gentle, because beyond the streets, beyond the jugglers and musicians, there were performances staged in courtyards, in open-air theaters, in spaces where laughter was sharpened into cruelty. The Roman theater was not only art, it was power. It was comedy that feels dark, even unsettling. When we look back today, imagine a crowded amphitheater at dusk. The torches flicker, casting shadows across stone arches. Actors step forward, their faces hidden behind masks, their gestures exaggerated, their voices rising in cadence. The crowd erupts in laughter, but the humor is not gentle, it is sharp, it is cruel. It mocks the weak, ridicules the condemned, turns humiliation into entertainment. Roman comedy thrived on exaggeration. The masks were grotesque, the movements theatrical, the jokes biting, servants mocked, prisoners ridiculed, outsiders caricatured. The people laughed, not because it was kind, but because it was spectacle. The theater was not only amusement, it was control, it was Rome's cruelty, disguised as art. Picture the actors stumbling across the stage, their voices rising in parody. The crowd roars with laughter, their joy echoing through the amphitheater. But beneath the humor, there is unease, because the jokes are not harmless, they are sharp, they are cruel. They reveal a society that found joy in humiliation. The dark comedy extended into festivals. Actors performed plays mocking prisoners, turning punishment into laughter. The crowd cheered, not only at the performance, but at the cruelty. The rulers knew that humor could be weaponized, that laughter could reinforce power, that mockery could remind the people of Rome's strength. Imagine the silence after a cruel joke. The laughter fades, but the humiliation remains. The condemned stands shamed. The actor bows, the crowd moves on. But the cruelty lingers, because Roman theater was not only laughter, it was violence disguised as joy. And yet, the citizens believed the theater was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance of performance was a sign of empire, that comedy, even when cruel, was a mark of civilization. The theater was not only art, it was declaration of Rome's values, of Rome's power, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that stage settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the masks grin, the laughter echoes. This is Roman theater, a world where comedy became cruelty, and cruelty became spectacle. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the theater, to the rhythms of daily life, to the balance between survival and indulgence, to the quieter truths hidden beneath spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but its foundation was built on violence, because beyond the banquets, beyond the laughter, beyond the theater, there was blood, blood in the arena, blood in the streets, blood woven into daily life. Violence was not only tolerated, it was celebrated, it was normalized, it was Rome itself. Imagine the Colosseum at dawn, the gates creak open, the crowd gathers, their voices rising in anticipation. Gladiators prepare in silence, their bodies scarred. Their faces calm, the air is thick with tension, with expectation, with hunger, because in Rome, violence was not only spectacle, it was ritual, it was entertainment made flesh. The normalization of violence began with power. Rome was an empire built on conquest, on armies marching across lands, on battles fought in distant fields. Citizens believed that strength was proof of greatness, that brutality was a mark of civilization. The arena reflected the battlefield, the blood spilled in games was a mirror of Rome's expansion. Violence was not only tolerated, it was glorified. Picture the crowd roaring in triumph. A gladiator falls, his body broken, his fate decided by a gesture. The people cheer, their voices echoing through stone arches. The rulers smile, because the spectacle is not only entertainment, it is control. It reminds the citizens that Rome is strong, that Rome is ruthless, that Rome is eternal. Violence was normalized through repetition. Day after day, games filled the arenas, executions staged as theater, battles reenacted for amusement, blood spilled for joy. Children grew up watching cruelty, their laughter rising with the crowd. For them, violence was not shocking, it was ordinary, it was Rome's rhythm made visible. Imagine the festivals filled with spectacle, prisoners forced to fight, animals released into the arena, myths reenacted with blood. The crowd cheered, their joy rising with each death, because violence was not hidden, it was public, it was communal, it was Rome's identity displayed in cruelty. The normalization of violence revealed hierarchy. The poor watched from crowded seats, their voices rising in chorus. The wealthy reclined in shaded boxes, their faces calm, their gestures decisive. The games revealed not only brutality, but division, because the power to decide life or death belonged to the elite. The crowd cheered, but the rulers controlled the spectacle. And yet, the citizens believed the violence was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that blood was a sign of empire, that cruelty was a mark of civilization. The games were not only entertainment, they were declarations of Rome's strength, of Rome's dominance, of Rome itself. Imagine the silence after a death. The crowd's roar fades, but the blood remains. The gladiator lies broken, the sand stained, the air heavy. The people move on, but the cruelty lingers, because violence was not only spectacle, it was Rome's truth, it was Rome's obsession. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that arena settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the crowd roars, the blood spills. This is Rome's violence, a world where cruelty became ritual, and ritual became society. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the arenas, to the quieter rhythms of citizens, to the balance between survival and indulgence, to the truths hidden beneath spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but its entertainment was not only physical, because beyond the arenas, beyond the banquets, beyond the laughter, there was psychology, a way of thinking, a way of feeling, a way of living shaped by performance. The Roman mind was trained to see cruelty as joy, to see spectacle as truth, to see entertainment as life itself. Imagine the crowd gathering in the Colosseum. The torches flicker, the voices rise, the anticipation builds. The people are not only watching, they are participating. Their emotions rise with the spectacle, their identities shaped by the roar of the crowd. Because in Rome, entertainment was not only pastime, it was psychology. It was the mind molded by ritual. The psychology of Roman entertainment was built on repetition. Day after day, games filled the arenas, festivals filled the streets, performances filled the courtyards. The people grew accustomed to spectacle. They expected it, they demanded it. For them, entertainment was not luxury, it was necessity. It was Rome's rhythm made visible. Picture the citizens cheering in unison. Their voices rise together, their emotions merge, their identities dissolve into the crowd. The psychology of entertainment was collective, it was shared, it was Rome itself reflected in unity, because the games were not only spectacle, they were community. They were Rome's mind displayed in ritual, but beneath the joy, there was control, because the rulers knew that entertainment shaped thought, that spectacle molded emotion, that cruelty disguised as joy could reinforce power. The psychology of Roman entertainment was not only amusement, it was governance, it was Rome's strength, made visible in laughter and blood. Imagine the silence after a performance. The crowd disperses, their emotions lingering, their minds shaped by what they have seen. The rulers smile, because they know that the people have been molded, that the spectacle has reinforced loyalty, that the psychology of entertainment has secured Rome's power. The psychology revealed hierarchy. The poor watched from crowded seats, their emotions rising in chorus. The wealthy reclined in shaded boxes, their faces calm, their gestures decisive. The games revealed not only spectacle, but division, because the psychology of entertainment was not equal. It was shaped by power, it was shaped by control, and yet, the citizens believed the entertainment was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance of spectacle was a sign of empire, that cruelty, when wrapped in ritual, was acceptable. The psychology was not only amusement, it was declaration of Rome's values, of Rome's strength, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of that crowd settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the voices rise, the emotions merge. This is Roman psychology. A world where entertainment became ritual, and ritual became identity. And as we move forward, we will step beyond the psychology, to the quieter truths of daily life, to the balance between survival and indulgence, to the hidden rhythms beneath spectacle. The story continues, and Rome waits. Rome was a city of spectacle, but its entertainment was not always joy, because beyond the laughter, beyond the banquets, beyond the games, there was cruelty disguised as humor, as ritual, as celebration. The fun of Rome, when seen through modern eyes, becomes disturbing. To imagine the crowded arenas, the torches flicker, the crowd roars, the gladiators fight, the people cheer, their voices rising in triumph, but beneath the joy, there is blood, beneath the laughter there is cruelty, because Rome's entertainment was not only spectacle, it was violence, it was control, it was Rome itself. The psychology of entertainment was shaped by repetition, day after day. The people watched cruelty, they grew accustomed to it, they expected it, they demanded it. For them, violence was not shocking, it was ordinary, it was Rome's rhythm made visible, and so the fun became disturbing, because cruelty was normalized, because laughter was sharpened into pain. Picture the citizens reclining in bathhouses, their voices rising in conversation. They speak of wages, of performances, of games. Their words are calm, their faces serene, but the subjects of their joy are cruelty and risk. The fun is not gentle, it is sharp, it is Rome's obsession, made visible in daily life. The rulers knew the power of spectacle, they knew that entertainment could mold thought, could shape emotion, could reinforce control. The cruelty was deliberate, the laughter was weaponized, the fun was not only amusement, it was governance, it was Rome's strength, made visible in ritual. Imagine the silence after a performance. The crowd disperses, their emotions lingering, their minds shaped by what they have seen. The rulers smile, because they know that the people have been molded, that the spectacle has reinforced loyalty, that the fun, even when disturbing, has secured Rome's power. And yet, the citizens believed the entertainment was proof of Rome's greatness. They believed that abundance of spectacle was a sign of empire, that cruelty, when wrapped in ritual, was acceptable. The fun was not only joy, it was declaration of Rome's values, of Rome's strength, of Rome itself. So breathe slowly, and let the image of Rome settle in your mind. The torches flicker, the crowd roars, the laughter echoes. This is Roman entertainment, a world where fun became cruelty, and cruelty became spectacle. And now, the story pauses, the voices fade, the torches dim, the crowd disperses, Rome waits in silence. And now, it's time to rest. Good night.